Hot off the press, we got brand new PXG clubs, which you know what that means. It's gonna be time for a review. We're gonna run out of room for all their clubs in here. They have so many models now. I guess we're gonna have to start selling some off. Anyways, let's get these in the simulator and review them. So we just kind of ordered a stock set. These are the brand new O211s, and check these out. I saw a picture of them. Oh my goodness, look how money those look. So those have the X-Core 2, the O211s. This is their wedge. And now we kind of ordered a stock set just to try it out in the simulator. But here's the deal with these, is they're gonna be a lot more affordable than the Gen 5s. So they've put a lot of the Gen 5 technology into the O211, which means supposedly it hits absolutely fantastic, but you're not gonna pay the price point you're gonna get with Gen 5s. Now I'm gonna talk about the differences and really what you're sacrificing between these two clubs. But a super simple way is these are forged. So forged means that they're really cutting this out of one big chunk of metal versus casted clubs. Now, if you're not familiar with the difference between forged and casted, the forged clubs, because it's just made out of one big hunk of metal, typically you're gonna get more consistency, like with the center of gravity. The club faces are just gonna be more consistent throughout the manufacturing process versus a casted club. Now, this casted club is essentially a mold, and then you sort of, pour the metal in there and then it hardens. I'm not a scientist, I don't really understand how it works. But apparently you can have more discrepancies with casting. Over the years, club manufacturers have gotten so good at making both, I would say that performance is minimal, performance difference is minimal. Now, typically what you see, forged clubs are typically gonna be blades, lower handicap, better players can play forged, and then these are gonna be more for player improvement or to help the high handicappers out. And that's typically what you see, but that's a very sort of broad way to look at it. But the question is can these casted clubs perform just as well as the forged Gen 5, and what the heck is the differences between them? Because if this club's half the price and it performs just as good, we're gonna have to get it in the simulator and find out. So should we start firing this thing up? Tate's getting it warm for us. Okay, so just for comparison's sakes, we're gonna put these in the simulator up against the Gen 5. So the Gen 5 is sort of their flagship golf club. It's their sort of original technology that they built off, which is a forged club. So most people like playing forged clubs because a forged club typically is going to give you that blade-like feel when you're standing over the golf ball instead of like a cavity back casted club. And so that's why these are so sweet, is you sort of get the performance of a cavity back golf club, but you get the look and feel and workability around the golf course of a forged club. Now, what is the difference between forged and casted? Now, I'm not super familiar with the manufacturing process, but typically a forged club is gonna be all literally forged out of one hunk of metal. So what that's gonna allow you to do is just have better consistency and less discrepancies within each club. So your center of gravity, the center point on the golf ball, the sweet spot on the golf club is gonna be more consistent throughout the manufacturing process. Versus a casted club is gonna be a mold that they pour the metal into and let it harden, and you can have more discrepancies in a casted club. Typically, what you're gonna see is low handicappers, people that like workability, obviously the pros, those guys, they all play forged clubs. High handicappers that want performance improvement type clubs typically are gonna play casted clubs. So that's sort of the nutshell differences between forged and casted. But technology's gotten so good, and these guys have gotten so good at making clubs, all the brands, that I don't think the gap is as large as it used to be between forged and casted. A lot of casted manufacturers out there and clubs out there are just awesome. They work flawlessly. Now, these are designed a little bit for player improvement, sort of the higher handicappers, but it doesn't mean if you're a low handicapper, you can't play these. But they have the same technology that the Gen 5s has as far as what's inside the club, sort of that gel that they use. That's all the exact same. Now, there is differences between the clubs besides aesthetics, but let's get them in the simulator. Let's see how they're gonna perform. This guy's half the price, literally almost half the price of the Gen 5s, but has a lot of the same technology. And let's see if that price tag is worth it. Now only you can decide based on your particular golf game, whether you're a high handicapper, low handicapper, what feels good to you. So there isn't a blanket answer for everybody, but let's at least get some data on these and see what's going on. Okay, so I'm just setting our parameters here. We're in Denver, Colorado, so I'm setting our altitude to 5268, which is within a foot or two of what we're at. So if you're at sea level, don't be alarmed at my distances because it's probably a good 15 yards longer than what it would be at sea level. We're using a premium golf ball. We're testing with Pro V1X today throughout the test, so we'll have consistency there. Here's the other thing I wanted to mention. I test these clubs from an amateur's point of view. I've watched a million golf club reviews in my day, and I love them. I think they're all awesome. Some of the big guys out there do a great job, but they're also really good. Like their misses are a centimeter or two off. Mine aren't. My misses are like on the toe or just a complete miss. And so I think it's important that we get the feedback from an amateur golfer like myself, because typically the people buying these clubs are amateurs. And so we want, I just think it just adds a fresh perspective. Now, I'm not gonna be nearly as knowledgeable as some of those other guys, but I think it's important to know. All right, so 10 shots with the O211s. What I'm really curious is I've just been really hitting the ball just awful. Just terrible lately. So I'm kind of glad I have been, because I want to see what this is going to do with my misses. Which club's going to perform better with my miss hits. Oh, that was a terrible shot. I mean, I almost missed the ball. 150 yards though. I mean, I literally hit that right off the toe. And that's why I love PXG clubs in general. You can do that, and it might not go the direction you want, but I mean, 150 yards, I'll take that for pretty much a complete miss. I think I might go 15, because I didn't have enough good shots to get us good enough data. 190 yards with a 7-iron. That's what I'm talking about, that de-lofting. I know we're gonna gain some extra yardage with that. Last one. Another solid one. 200, baby. 200. That last one went 200. Whew. All right. That's the O211. Let's switch to the Gen 5. 15 shots with that. Okay, so one of the major differences with the Gen 5 is a couple things. One, like I said, we have a forged club. We have the same filler. It's sort of that gel filler that's in here. Biggest difference, in my opinion, with Gen 5 is our perimeter weighting. So when you get fitted, this big weight in the center, there's like 4 or 5 different weights that we can go with. So this club, I'm fitted with a very heavy weight, and I think that's a big advantage because we have adjustability. So that 7-iron that I just hit is lighter than this club, so I bet you our club head speed was faster. But here's the thing. Here's why I need, as an amateur golfer, why I need that heavy weight in there. My tendency is when I get here, I jerk and that club head comes over the top. So even though I still end up with an inside-outside swing path, I can feel that jerk sometimes coming here. And that's why I'm towing everything with the O211, because when I'm coming over the top, I'm essentially hitting everything off the toe like this, because my swing path is like this. No good. So I feel like that extra heavy weight, even though it probably slows down my club head speed, here, that weight sort of lags behind just a little bit, I feel like. So by the time I'm addressing the ball, I'll bet you I'll have less toe shots, and that's strictly because of the weight in here. Let's find out. It's definitely a heavier club, and that's because of that adjustable weight in there. You wouldn't necessarily have to have it heavier, but my particular one is. That was way too thin, but not as towed. I'm definitely hitting the ball more consistently in the center of the club face. Now again, that's because it's more customizable in your fitting experience. So it can be more customized to you with Gen 5 or Gen 4. Oh, that's a good one. All right, so we're gonna look at our club speed. So here's our O211 7 iron. Our club head speed averaged 79 miles an hour. So 79 miles an hour, 2.5 degrees inside out, even though I can feel me jerking at the top, a little outside in. So that is our club head speed, which I think as an amateur is one of the more important data you wanna look at. Gen 5, wow, 81.8. I really thought the O211 I'd have a faster club head speed because it is lighter. I thought I would have guaranteed it. So I'm getting more club head speed out of the Gen 5. Now let's just look at the ball data. Okay, O211 ball speed, 105 miles an hour, 4,200 RPM backspin. Now let's see, we're carrying 143 and that had a lot of mishits in there for an average of 172. I had a lot of mishits on my Gen 5 too, but let's look at Gen 5. Okay, here you go. Here's what's interesting. So club head speed, I don't know how, was slower, but I had a faster ball speed. So I was getting off the face of the club faster. Interesting. So Gen 5 had a little bit slower ball speed, but I had a longer carry by 9 yards and then an extra yard on total. So, I mean, none of that makes sense. It's inconsistent data, which is exactly what you'd expect from an amateur. I don't know how that happened, but my ball speed and club head speed were flip-flopped on the two. But the Gen 5 was getting more carry, and the reason I think we're getting extra distance with the Gen 5 was exactly what I said. The fact that that club head was more customizable with this heavy weight, I could feel the club head lagging a little bit more, and I was hitting more in the center of the club versus I was towing it more here. So even though this is de-lofted and is really more like a 6.5 iron, my Gen 5 went further, which I think just proves to the fact that it's a little more customizable in your swing. So I would say, me personally, at a 16 handicap, I've been as low as a 12 before. I feel like someone like me is like right on the edge of feeling the benefits of like a forged Gen 5 that's fully customizable. I would say if you're a 20 plus handicap, this is definitely gonna be the way to go. But if you're looking for that tad more customability, I would get the Players Club in the Gen 5, if any of that makes sense. Customability, I don't even know if that's a word. There's my review. I got very sweaty, but it's always fun to do because I'm always curious how new clubs are gonna do. Now here's what I will say. Again, this is almost half the price. So is it worth an extra 8 or 9 yards of carry when it's already half the price? I'm not sure. And another fact I forgot to point out, this club is de-lofted. I tend to have a low ball flight naturally. I have a hard time getting the ball up in the air and the ball sticking on the green. So for me, de-lofting a club is a problem. I want as much loft as possible so I can get the ball up in the air. So again, that's why I was saying it's dependent on you as an individual, which is why I think it's important, no matter what you go with, at least get a fitting of some kind. You can get a fitting here if you're in the Denver, Colorado area. Make sure to subscribe to our channel where we review golf equipment at an amateur level from an amateur viewpoint, which makes sense because 99% of the people watching these reviews are amateurs. So there's my perspective. Gen 5 is definitely staying in the bag, but man, for half the price, as sexy as these things are, I'm curious how they do up against the other brands that are a similar price point versus a less customizable, Gen 5 or something like that. Stay tuned for more. As always, we're having a lot of fun here. More videos to come.